Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with David Blankman of Title3Funds.com. David, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background before you got into Title3 Funds. What were you doing before this project and what led you to this place?
I'm a serial entrepreneur, and among my startups, I started a registered investment advisor from scratch to manage portfolios for individuals, corporations, and nonprofits, and learned a lot about the investment process and industry from that. The next step was I developed a broker-dealer trade platform for exempt securities, like these securities we deal with in this space. I helped to fundraise $300 million with these issuers through the security trade platform that I innovated and made work. And also recently, last year, got involved in 2017 with the Jobs Act funding for Title III and Title IV, the securities for startups and for private placements, and worked with a startup team here in Austin as the investor relations manager. And we succeeded in raising $611,000 on a portal in the United States for Title III funding from 605 investors.
Well, that's great. You had quite a bit of experience in this space and you've seen it change over time. But what excites you right now in this space?
Many more startups and all investors can now participate in the private placement fundraising for startups due to the Jobs Act, which was actually passed in 2012. Title III became effective in May 16th of 2016, and Title IV was June 12th of 2015. So equity crowdfunding is now alive and well in the United States and extends the opportunity to many more investors, and more startups now will have access to capital. I'm real excited about that.
Well, that's great. So you see a lot in the area of early stage funding. For those people who are starting to invest today in startups, what's your advice for them?
Just wrote a LinkedIn post. It's not out there yet, but I'm going to polish it up and do it. But I think investors need to look for a business plan that includes very early revenue. We've had kind of a build it and they will come, like the Field of Dreams movie. I love this example of startups in this country, the unicorn phenomenon that's going on, where they ramp up and they build it out and they hope that once they're done, all these customers will make revenue for them. And they do hundreds of $millions to achieve that. I would like to see us go back to this basic premise that great companies that start up that do revenue early will eventually reach profitability sooner. And then the value for an investor is much more readily seen and readily achievable if we do it that way.
Well, that's great. And so for those startups, you talked about revenue being important, but in general, what's your advice for people who are running startups? What would you tell them?
I would tell them develop a business plan very early that includes two things. Start listening to your intended customers very early about your product and service. In other words, make sales calls, maybe even before you have the product built or you have the web app media product developed. And then that will help you to listen to customers very early, and also to seek revenue from these early customers that you use to create an opportunity where maybe you don't have to pivot very much. I read about pivots all the time with these startups on all the various articles that we read. And I just think there's a way to do this. It kind of comes from my experience in startup business early and through my career, is look for that early revenue, and also revenue, believe it or not, I think in the seed stage.
Well, that's good advice. Revenue really proves traction and customer validation. So it's certainly important to have from the investor's point of view. But as you look at the industry, and we talked about the digital disruption section of it out there, how do you see that evolving?
It's evolving into what's called, and I like half of this, the fourth generation of the internet. I don't really like part of it that is really ramping into payment processing and all the cryptocurrency stuff, but I really like the part of it that's revolutionizing access for all customers to find things online, to make purchases on their mobile device. And this is going to do nothing but transform and literally disrupt more industries as we move along.
Well, that's great. So you see a lot of change out there. If you had to pick one change you see in the sector you're in, what do you think is the driving change these days?
Green side investing versus the public markets. I grew up in my industry experience in the public markets. In other words, exchange traded securities and mutual funds to asset allocate client portfolios. Well, what shifted over the last 20 years or so is people are IPOing not at all or very late. And much of the gains in many of the startups that do become very high scale unicorns is what's called green side investing. And that is us here in the private placement world. So I think this is a big change. I don't think it's going to go away because I think there's plenty of opportunities. And now that all investors or everyone is available to invest in private placements through the Title III and Title IV of the Jobs Act, everyone will have a chance to get into some of these interesting, exciting, transformational businesses.
So for the Title III sector, what is your investment thesis for this sector? What criteria do you look at to know that's going to be a good deal or it's not?
Going back to what I just said for advice for a startup, look for revenue. Look for a startup, and we have many in the Title III space right now. There are live deals currently that do have revenue, and I'm attracted to that as an investor. I go, well, if I have a revenue generating startup that's a seed based offering, that sounds really interesting to me. So that's really where I start my search, and you can find these kind of situations in social media startups, fashion, food delivery, ride hailing, car sales. And one of my favorite new sectors that's coming on stream in this space of Title III funding is space exploration. The final frontier is what I call it. And that's really exciting to me. And you mentioned that I could mention a company. I actually do invest in these Title III deals. I'm building portfolios to do some analysis over time of IRR and ROI on the holdings in the portfolio. One was Solstar Space Company, and they funded one of the portals here. And what they did, actually, their video was so cool. They had on the online page where all investors can see and start their investigation of the offering is Wi-Fi in space. And they actually shot a rocket off, and it goes way up into the stratosphere or above, and then sent a tweet back to the lady who was talking about it on the ground after the launch. And she showed it on her phone. I thought it was the coolest thing. And I invested right away after seeing that video because that's how it is in online investing. So exciting. This concept of Wi-Fi from space to the earth is really cool. So I invested in that. And just one example of some of the exciting transformational businesses that are coming into all startup world. I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, that's great. Well, that sounds like a good example that fits the thesis. But on the other side, when you look at these startups, what are the challenges you see in having them get up and running these days? Revenue is the key thing you're looking for. But aside from generating revenue, what do you think the challenging part is?
Two things. Really separate yourself from the competition and be able to tell your story well. I'm big in pitch, personal pitch presentations, getting it in front of investors and startups as well, and presenting yourself so clearly where you do two things well. Differentiate yourself from competition. In 90 seconds or 2 minutes, it's tough, but you got to do it. And differentiate your platform or your business or your product from everybody else and tell the story well. And I think that will be an important aspect of success for many of these businesses as they go out and raise capital through accredited investors, the traditional way, through Reg D, or through the new Jobs Act funding opportunities.
So you see a wide range of deals coming through the platform. Are there any particular subsectors or applications that you think are really good immediate opportunities for investors to pursue?
Yes, and I'm really big into medical developments. My family, I had some people die very early. My two grandfathers of heart disease, for example, but med tech, health tech companies solving all kinds of medical. I remember there's an offering called Pharma that was out on Title III funding recently that has one of the first non-addictive drugs that can serve patients for pain that's not opioid derivative. Huge opportunity with the opioid crisis going on in America. And that was a Title III funding opportunity that I did invest in. E-commerce, we know that everything is being bought on the iPhones and the mobile devices today. I believe that's only going to get stronger. And retail is going to transform from going and driving to a store and fighting for a parking lot We're sitting literally in an air-conditioned house and ordering literally everything you need on your iPhone or telling Alexa to order it for you. Green tech, I love this, cleaning the environment, doing clean energy. We have a lot of good solar deals in the Title III and the Title IV space that have come on and funded successfully. I mentioned the space exploration, the final frontier. There was Solstar Space that I invested in, and then Terrasat. And Terrasat has developed a jet engine or an engine that works in space for satellites that is far more cheaper and less costly and less combustible than the current applications for fuel to fuel satellites as they go into space. I'm kind of a space person, you can tell, and I love stuff like that. So I'm very interested in those kind of deals. But it's just an amazing time in all of fundraising, whether it be the traditional accredited investor Reg D side or the new rules that have come out for Title III and Title IV equity crowdfunding. And I'm really here to help startups be successful and to help them do things the right way and to pitch skills, writing a business plan, looking for revenue early. I think all these things are things that I believe in, and hopefully I can help many, many be successful in that way.
Well, that sounds great. Well, how best for the listeners to get back in touch with you?
They can reach me at Blankman, that's DBLANKMAN, at Title3Funds.com, or from the great people I've met here at 10 Capital in Austin, Texas. A great group of folks. They do awesome pitch and reverse pitch events, very high hospitality. I'm just really happy to be associated with this fine organization.
Great. Well, we'll put those in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking time to talk today and for the nice compliment there as well. We'll hope to have you back for a follow-up soon and appreciate all you do for the community.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here today with you.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.